It said no audio. Thank you, Hayden. Good thing I checked the comments. My apologies, everybody. I forgot to unmute the mic after the open played. So just to recap, sunrise officially at 6:42. Because of the Cascade Mountains, that time is delayed a little bit for us. So I would expect it's going to happen in the next 10 minutes or so. And when it does, it's going to be met by a bunch of thick smoke, particulates in the lower atmosphere. I'm pretty confident it's going to burn through, if not immediately, as it gets a little bit higher and that smoke thins out. We're at Glacier Peak High School, and as we look to the east here, we're right on top of an escarpment. So it goes down the valley towards what's called State Route 9, Highway 9, which runs north-south, and then if you continue across the first field that you come to on the other side of Highway 9, you come to Spring-Getty Road, which is where I was live streaming from last night. Here in Snohomish County, health officials have said the air quality throughout the county is unhealthy, and they're advising everybody to stay indoors. This smoke is expected to stick around throughout today into tomorrow and begin loosening up on Monday. We have actually a little bit of precipitation, some light rain drizzle in the forecast, believe on Monday. So this will move out of here, but for right now, it's pretty miserable looking. Let's go ahead and go back to our wide shot, and we'll kind of zoom in on some of this as we look down across the football field here at Glacier Peak High School in Snohomish, Washington, about 30 miles north of Seattle. Thanks, Hayden. And Hayden, thanks for checking out the Beyond 90 Seconds Facebook page, which you can find at facebook.com/Mark Horner Media. Appreciate that. Nice to have you on board from the United Kingdom. Here's that handle for Facebook. I'll tell you what, when I stepped out this morning, first time I stepped out was at 4 o'clock to walk the dog, right? My 18-year-old dog. And then as I left to come to the high school here, it wasn't long before I was sneezing and coughing, and hopefully that doesn't happen during the live stream. But this stuff really is hanging in the air, and you not only feel it in your throat, and a lot of people complaining about headaches or minor headaches. I know for the past 2 or 3 days, actually, I've had like a minor, what feels like a sinus headache. It kind of affects your taste too. Your mouth feels kind of dry, cottony, and bitter things. It affects tastes, and I think I saw some comments on Shannon O'Donnell put a question, I believe it was last night out on Como, about how it affects people, how they're experiencing the smoke in terms of what they're feeling. And yeah, a lot of people are saying headaches in particular, and affecting taste of, especially of certain foods. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So while I had no audio, I was talking about a website. Let me go back to that and explain it real quick. So here's that website. It's wasmoke.blogspot.com. And this is a website but from the Department of Ecology here in Washington State and partner organizations that has the latest information on the wildfire smoke here in our state, including some great satellite maps showing you the progression and information related to the health impact and all related factors. So highly recommend. It's an excellent site. And it's that site that was referring to, or earlier in the week, it was referring to this smoke event as the approaching, I think they call it supermassive area of smoke. You can hear the rumble of a train down below and the croaking of a frog nearby. So that's what you get. So hang with me if you're interested in seeing just what daybreak looks like in sunset, given all of this smoke that's in our state and throughout the Pacific Northwest, really, when you think of especially Oregon. Oh my goodness, it's terrible what's going on in Oregon. Then you'll see what might not only be interesting to the eye, but is very much related to an event that's making news throughout the country and indeed throughout the world. The worst air quality in the world, they were saying on the news last night, is in Washington and Oregon metropolitan areas anyway. So yeah, it's pretty darn bad right now. And I know so many of you throughout the West can relate to this. I know that there are those who I regularly communicate with on social media. Kit Harvey in Redding, California, is all too familiar with wildfires, and it's become quite a regular season, if you will. Up here in Washington, while there have certainly been wildfires, the past 3 to 5 years they've really seemed to have stood out, haven't they? If you're familiar with our area. Yeah, Hayden, I was aware of that. Once you brought up no audio, I realized that we had no audio all the way in for probably the first 3 or 4 minutes of the stream, so thank you very much. So I tried to do a recap for you. Here in the train once again. And if you're new to the stream, welcome to the broadcast. It's nice to have you here. It's so September in every way except for the smoke. When I went to the vehicle this morning and got in the SUV, you know, those light dewdrops were on the vehicle, the windshield. And I can imagine what it's like down in the valley where the cornfields are, where I have shot video and photographs of those morning dewdrops and listened to that sound of that train. It's just part of the rhythm of the way things are here in Snohomish, but to have this smoke event is not the norm in September, that's for sure. Just yesterday, in case you missed yesterday's broadcast, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we have some drone footage of from our neighbors to the north in Skagit County, Washington. And Jeff Horner, my brother, shot this. I thought I'd share that with you. It says 4 p.m. today, disregard that. That's a graphic I can't remove from the video, but you can see it was pretty bad up in Skagit County. Let me just check the comments here. So perhaps you're watching and you live in an area that has a lot of smoke right now. How is it affecting you? A lot of people are directly affected not only by smoke, but by the encroaching fires, or perhaps you've already been impacted. It seemed to be a unique thing to say in September here for Washington State, but it's affecting a lot of people. We've had our own bad fires here, still have them going on in some areas throughout the West, so many of you can relate to this. It's kind of like the coronavirus question. Do you know someone who's had coronavirus? Do you know someone perhaps who's even passed away as a result of coronavirus? That answer to one of those questions anyway is more frequently becoming yes. And here we are in September, and do you know someone right now who is being directly impacted, other than say the health, let's say their home is being threatened or has been directly impacted by wildfires? Let me know in the comments. That'd be interesting to hear. So it's 6:57. We know we have clear skies above. I can look directly above me and I can just see that the light blue is starting to bleed through. And I'll show you what it looks like here at Glacier Peak High. There's the phone that's showing the image of me on camera. Let's go ahead and just take that. So that's that phone's camera right there. On a typical September day during the week, with the recent weather, students here at Glacier Peak High School, especially in the cafeteria, would have an outstanding view over the football fields, soccer fields, looking east toward the mountains, but that just hasn't been the case the last couple of days. And in the morning, we would typically see Mount Baker, that snow-capped peak. More than just capped, it's draped in snow. I always say it looks like a big scoop of vanilla ice cream, but we're not going to see that today. I was mentioning a moment ago about the dewdrops on the vehicle this morning, and even the grass. And indeed, I mean, so much says September here. Over here is the baseball field. They have a couple of baseball fields beyond the outhouses, the porta potties. But what I wanted to point out, if we go to the baseball field that's furthest away, don't know if this will pick up on camera, But you can see a white band along the grass, and that is just some mist or fog, if you will, light fog. Just, it's so September. There you can make it out. All right. Hopefully we'll see that orange orb emerging through the smoke soon. I'm going to hang in there if you want to hang in there with me. The one thing I'm missing this morning is a good cup of coffee. So normally a live stream like this I would be doing on Twitter and Periscope. There's a good audience for that there. I don't know how well this will come across on YouTube. It's not the typical thing that I do on YouTube. Usually I do prepared uploads, something I've written, shot, edited. I've done occasional breaking news, live events, structure fires downtown Everett, elsewhere. But we'll see how this goes across. I know having no audio for the first few minutes didn't help, that's for sure. But hey, that's live broadcasting, right? Used to be I could have a producer in my ear telling me we can't hear you when I was working in news, but I'll have to make a better habit of checking the comments. Come on, son. Gonna have to just keep my eyes peeled here. Head on a swivel, as they say. You never know what you're gonna see out here. The other day I was out here with my youngest son, and we were just walking some laps here around the track. And as we went around the track and across the field there by the scoreboard, past the scoreboard, and then we're continuing right to left, right about in this area. You can see that fence? When you look over that fence, I mean, you're looking down to what actually at one point was a landfill. And the county has a lot of its vehicles there now, especially related to road crews and snow plows, things like that. But anyhow, just over the fence popped up 2 deer, and they scampered away. And it's not uncommon. There are deer that live in the area. It's not uncommon to see them. Okay. So I wonder if the sun has popped up over the mountains yet. If it has, I mean, it's right about this time that I would expect to see it. You'd say, well, Mark, what time is sunrise? Well, sunrise is at 6:42. We've passed that, but I've shot a lot of moonrises and sunrises here, and it's usually around 20 minutes. So apparently, I suspect now that it's 7:03 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, that it's quite likely that for the moment, the smoke is obscuring the sun. But I'm going to keep going here because I'm confident we'll eventually see it, because I could just make out some light blue overhead, so I'm confident there are no clouds. Check the weather forecast, I didn't see anything calling for clouds. So the fact that we don't see the sun, we don't see this bright area that's really apparent to us anyway, tells us just how the smoke is in this area. I mean, we're looking towards the valley, and what does smoke do? It settles, right? So that's going to be the thickest areas down in these pockets, the valley. The smoke has come in from the southwest, and these light breezes, these very light winds push it this way. It just kind of sits here. There's nothing really, it's a big pocket. You have these pockets throughout this area between, I mean, we've straight out there in the distance, we have a huge fence line basically that's keeping the smoke in here. And those are the Cascade Mountains. And then the winds are just continuing to bring that smoke in off the Pacific Ocean. And so it's just staying put, and it's just kind of building on top of itself. I can feel it getting lighter. I can feel like this kind of, you know, that I used to call it like a nuclear orange glow. There's a bit of that that's starting to emerge now. So I know the sunlight is bleeding through from where it should be coming from, but it's just not the sun itself. It's just not penetrating through the smoke just yet. So that's interesting. So a little bit about the way I set the equipment up today. I was having difficulty, that's why I was delayed by about 5 minutes, establishing a connection with my second phone. So to make this work, I'm streaming from an iPhone 7 Plus, and I need to use it to tether to another phone. It's essential that the other phone be on the same network. It's an old phone, the second phone's an iPhone 7. So I had to use Wi-Fi to connect and tether, and it just wasn't holding it. It was not sustaining the signal, and finally it did. And I really wanted to have that second camera. I was about to bail on that effort and just go with one camera, one phone, but I'm glad I was able to work this out. Fall colors, hints of them are just now starting to appear. Let's take a look across the second field over here. Everything, believe it or not, we call this wireless, yet you see all these wires. Well, there are two reasons you're seeing wires. We're charging this phone up here, which is where I'm watching your comments. And I'm streaming from this phone. This is my switcher, if you will. And I've got this dual cord coming down here. One's to charge, and I got a little like $8 piece in here. It's just a USB connection that allows me to connect my lavalier microphone. So, and actually I could connect headphones too, but I don't need headphones for this setup. But anyhow, let's take a look out in this direction. I've been here so many times in the fall shooting, and off to our left down in the valley we'll see the fog, and that fog will just continue to build and eventually work its way up here, and before you know it, these fields and everything else are in thick fog. No real fog today, just so much smoke. Okay, we have Juanita Castro here. Hi, Juanita. Hello, good morning, Juanita writes. 1,738.8 visibility here in Vancouver, Washington. Hard to see and drive. Can't see nothing. I don't know how people are driving in it. Well, Juanita, thank you for sharing that information and that direct report. That makes perfect sense, because I was mentioning a moment ago, and I'm sure you're well acquainted with it, the smoke is coming in off the Pacific Ocean. It originated in Oregon and California. It went west. Pardon me, I was about to cough, but I can feel the smoke on my throat now. It went west and it went north over the Pacific Ocean, and it curled back to the right going east, and it's coming into Washington from right about where Juanita lives. It's coming from southwestern Washington. It's a breeze. Light winds are just bringing it in off the water, and it's coming right into that area. So the worst area in Washington is going to be right in that area that Juanita's talking about. And so when we've been looking in recent days of this super massive, quote unquote, area of smoke that fills this satellite imagery that we've been looking at and watching it progress, move, north eastward. Its track was coming into Washington right over Juanita's area. People hear Vancouver and they think Canada, but there is a Vancouver for the people who may not be aware of it. Here in Washington state, it's right on the south end of our state, just north of the Oregon border, if that helps you out. And boy, those poor folks in Oregon, just south of Portland, mega fires. And it's my understanding there are 2 fires down there, 2 very, very large fires. And according to a Seattle newscast I watched last night on television, there's concern that those 2 huge fires may converge. Feel free to comment, Juanita. I'd love to hear what you might be able to share with us with your information. Yeah, I don't know, why do you have to be out driving in it, Juanita? That would be the question I have for folks down there. I know that some people may have no choice if it means keeping their job, but certainly that would be an area where it would be wise just to do your best to stay indoors, right? Okay, so we're at 7:10 now. That sun should have risen by now. Again, official sunrise time was 6:42, but there's no way we'd see it. You can hear my voice now starting to break up, and it's because of the smoke. So, yeah, 6:42. I always give it really a 20-minute pad after the official times for sunrise and moonrise here in Washington on this side of the mountains, because we've got to wait for the sun and the moon to come up over the mountains. If we had a flat horizon, yeah, those times on the apps that we use would be solid. But when you have something that obstructs the horizon like mountains, it takes several minutes more to see the sun or the moon. I've been through this many times out here. So we should have seen it by now. So what I suspect, I bet you the sun has appeared over appeared wouldn't be the right word, would it? The sun has risen. It just needs to get a bit higher where the density of this stuff that's pocketed down here, just kind of hanging the depths of the valley. Once the sun gets up a little higher, the smoke won't be quite so dense. And I expect to see it. I was using my app, the Photographer's Ephemeris. It's great for locating where the sun and the moon are going to rise and set and their path. And I believe, straight out in this direction, it was at 83 degrees, 83 point something. So I kind of lined the camera up where the app was going to had told me where it was going to rise. So I'm just waiting for that to happen. It'll burn through at some point once it gets high enough. But again, as crows fly by, the fact that we're not able to see the sun, I'm fairly confident there are no clouds. Nothing but clear blue sky that I can just see bleeding through just barely overhead. Juanita, you'd be a great guest to have on. And hear a first-hand account of what's going on in Vancouver, Washington. I'll tell you what, yesterday, I have to tell you, I'm teleworking right now, and kids have just started school, but that offers its own challenges for the household when they're doing virtual learning. But I have to admit the presence of the smoke, that air, it distracts you. Let's put it that way. I know I was having what felt like a mild sinus headache, and a coworker of mine had a really bad headache. I don't know if it was because of the smoke or not, but he took the day off as a result. And if you're not familiar with Glacier Peak High School, which is where I'm at right now, overlooking the Snohomish Valley, scoreboard, kind of hard to make out there, but it says home of the Grizzlies. This is Snohomish, Washington, but most of Snohomish, when we think of Snohomish, is down in the valley below us. We're just on the outer edges, and we're up against a couple of areas, an area known as Silver Firs, the city of Mill Creek or town of Mill Creek, and Everett, the outskirts of Everett, Washington, all kind of converge just down the road from here, just a bit west. Okay, I've got 7:14 a.m. now, and we're still not able to see the sun. What's interesting is off in the distance, it almost looks like there's sunlight on what I believe is Lord Hill. Let me take I don't know that this will pick up. It's going to be to the left of the football uprights. Hayden, I'm talking American football. You can see there, plus the soccer goal down below, but I'll put it right in the center of the screen. Yeah, it's not going to pick up so well, but to my eye, it almost looks like that hill is getting bathed in a bit of sunshine. One of the nice things, I guess, about the smoke is I have the whole track and this area to myself. If not for the smoke, a Saturday with no clouds, the little nip of fall in the air, there'd be people here, there'd be someone here. Usually there are people walking or jogging around the track below. And it's very common to see people kicking around a soccer ball in the field over there. But it's just me, which meant I had the whole parking lot to myself. I'll tell you what, folks, I'm going to give it 10 more minutes to see the sun, okay? We've been live streaming for 30 minutes and 47 seconds. We're well past sunrise now. The smoke is so thick over the Snohomish Valley that we just don't see the sun. But we'll give it another 10 minutes, so up until about 40 minutes into the stream, and we'll see if we see the sun. I think there's a good possibility that we will, and if we don't, that really says something about the intensity of the smoke in our valley. If you're interested in following me on my, or checking out my other social media accounts, I'm on Instagram at Beyond 90 Seconds, just like I am here on YouTube. I'm also at Beyond 90 Seconds on Twitter. And over on Facebook, I'm Mark Horner Media. Amy D, good morning. Nice to have you here. Amy D, we're well past sunrise and we're still not seeing the sun. We're pretty confident that there are no clouds out there or overhead. It's just a matter of thick smoke. So that tells us something about just how much smoke we're dealing with here. We're at Glacier Peak High School in Snohomish, Washington, about 30 miles north of Seattle. And here at Glacier Peak, it sits on the edge of a hillside or escarpment. Basically, down below in the distance is a valley. You begin to get a sense of that by looking at these trees. But on the other side of that, it gets even lower into the valley, and the town of Snohomish is just over the fence and a couple miles down that way, significantly down. So we're up high. Typically, we would have an excellent vantage point for watching sunrise, seeing the Cascade Mountains. But because of this smoke, we're not seeing any of that. I knew we weren't going to see the mountains, but I'm surprised that it is so bad. I know the reports have been telling us it's going to be bad, but I still thought there was a chance we'd see the sun right around sunrise. But that's just not the case, and we're well past that time. So it's just you and I and the sound of the crows and another frog croaking away, this time off to my right. The earlier we had one to the left. Temperature was in the 50s Fahrenheit when I started. I imagine it's still hanging right around there. It was, I can't remember whether it was the event 2 years ago. I know I said it was 2 years ago in my live stream last night. It may have been a year or two prior to that, though, when I was up at Semiahmoo in Blaine, Washington. And the smoke was so bad that at sunset, or prior to sunset, the sun just flat out disappeared about 15 minutes before sunset. We were overlooking the water and toward Canada, basically. And it was the middle of summer, and the sun just disappeared. We didn't get, it was still quite a bit above the horizon when we last saw it. But that's how thick the smoke was at that time. And, you know, on this one, I'll tip my hat to Governor Jay Inslee. This shouldn't be the norm, and it wasn't the norm for those of us who grew up here to have the consistency of fire-related events or impacts upon Washington State. I mentioned it earlier, but for those of you who've joined since I did so, there's an excellent website for getting the latest information on wildfire smoke here in Washington. And that website is, here it is, wasmoke.blogspot.com. That is the Washington State Department of Ecology and partner organizations have put that site together. So I'll leave that up for a few more seconds in case you want to make note of it. But wasmoke.blogspot.com. It has the latest on where the smoke is, how bad it is, whether it's rated as unhealthy or even more severely as hazardous, and has tips and other information related to this event that we're all experiencing here throughout Washington right now. So we heard from Vancouver, Washington, I believe it was Juanita, who told us how bad it was, that she can't even believe people are out driving in it, because that's where it's really bad here in Washington right now, is in southwestern Washington. That's where the smoke is coming in off the Pacific and working its way northward. But it's not just the Puget Sound area here in western Washington. There are areas in the Columbia Basin and as far away as Spokane. The Weather Service was saying we're going to be impacted by this smoke as well. But so much of it is kept here in the Puget Sound area because of that fence line that is the Cascade Mountains. And meantime, the light winds just kind of keep pushing it in, sweeping it in to this area. It's like we're a dustbin, you know? Imagine a broom just kind of sweeping it into a dustbin. The dust stops at the back of the bin because there's nowhere to go. And really, the mountains are the back end of the dustbin, and the light breeze just keeps on pushing that smoke in, and it's just kind of piling up here. And it's supposed to be here today, tomorrow, and begin loosening up on Monday, where we're expected this to break up with some light rain and apparently some change in the jet stream. So we're all looking forward to that. Maybe we don't usually look forward, perhaps all of us, to Mondays. For many of us, that means going back to work, and we like those weekends to be extended if possible. But this might be a situation where many of us are looking forward to Monday, because this will be loosening up. Wow, so here we are at 7:23 a.m., 37 minutes into the stream, and we're still not seeing the sun. Without the smoke, we'd have a clear day. But that's how bad it is. We'll go ahead and set up this other shot here to give you a closer look. There's so many crows behind me on the baseball field and the fence, the outfield fence. No doubt you're hearing them from time to time. I'll step out of the picture, but just out here on the baseball field, within this shot here and going off to our left, there must be at least 50 crows. I don't know if I need to talk. The crows are dominating the conversation. Last night, after live streaming from down in the valley on Spring-Getty Road here in Snohomish, Washington, I was going to go to Mukilteo because I could see it was going to be a really interesting sunset. And as I was making that drive, approaching the Silver Lake area, it was just amazing how intense and orange the sun was. But I could tell that it was already low enough in the horizon where I wasn't going to make it to Mukilteo in time. Mukilteo is on the shores of Puget Sound, on the east side of Puget Sound in the Everett area, again north of Seattle. I've done many live broadcasts there on Periscope and Twitter, and a few on YouTube. But it was just, we were seeing the sun quite brightly burning through the smoke, low on the horizon at sunset. But here the following morning now, at sunrise, sun's risen for some time now, and we're not seeing it. And I've got to believe that part of that is because it's thicker now. And we're also shooting across a valley, a deep pocket that collects that smoke where it just settles in. So I would imagine that's part of the equation too. Tell you what, 2 or 3 times now in the last 10 minutes, I believe I've heard a bald eagle. Very familiar with their sounds. It's not really nearby. It's probably perched within a couple hundred yards. But it's a pretty unmistakable sound. I think if you wanted to escape this smoke here in Washington, perhaps the best way to do it is go up into the Cascades and go up the passes, some of the higher areas, and get above this stuff. Otherwise, here in Western Washington anyway, you're pretty much stuck in this. Say one of the nice perks of getting up early, dragging myself out of bed early and coming out here and doing this is listening to all these birds, not just the crows, but there are these small birds up here on top of the light above the football field that are making some really interesting sounds. Tell you what, I think I'm going to keep streaming, and the reason for that is I'm just really curious to see and to document just how long past sunrise it's going to take to see that sun. I mean, we're at 45 minutes now, and it's just amazing that we're not seeing the sun. 7:31 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. My brother Jeff, who's been kindly contributing some drone footage in recent days, fantastic footage of the skies over Skagit County to the north of this area. He asked me as I was setting up today, sent me a message on Facebook asking me if there's any way I could possibly take his feed live, if you will. And you know what, that's possible. You would think that no, you couldn't, but with the app I'm using and whatnot, if I had just one more device, and I'll have my iPad back soon, I could show it on Facebook and share that screen as an input on this switcher that I'm using. So, you know what, Jeff, if you were live, I could do that, brother, if you're watching, once I get the iPad back. So officially sunrise was at 6:42 a.m. I always give it about 20 minutes to see the sun pop up over the mountains. So I would have expected to see the sun if we didn't have smoke prior to 7 a.m. Here we are on the back half of the 7 o'clock hour now, staring down to 8 o'clock a.m. and we still haven't seen the sun here at Glacier Peak High School overlooking the Snohomish Valley in Washington State. I had a friend tell me after my live stream that he thought the smoke was dissipating at his house, which is not far from here, within about, I'd say he's 5 miles away. So I thought, well, maybe things are changing. But it turns out that the meteorologists were on point when they said it's going to be worse today than it was yesterday. It is. And if you can avoid having to go outside, that's what health officials say you should do if you live in Snohomish County. That's what they're telling us here, and I imagine that's true for not only other areas in Washington State, but throughout much of the western United States. Lost 2RL says, down in the Lacey Olympia area, and it's pretty thick here. Everything has a vague orange gray hue. Well, thanks for that information. Appreciate that. Have you been able to see the sun, or, you know, the orange orb through the smoke, if you will? Be really interested to know that. If it wasn't for COVID-19, I'd be probably commuting to Olympia because that's where my regular office is. But right now it's teleworking up here in the northern part of Puget Sound. You can just see how the smoke collects in these, well, this is all one big pocket down below us. I mean, it is, I'm so familiar with looking over to the area just off screen to the left. There's a fringe of trees now from this position that kind of blocks the view. That fringe of trees right there, but beyond that, looking in the distance, you look down toward Highway 9 and Harvey Field, the small airport in Snohomish, and you can see across the valley towards some hillsides, Dutch Hill, but all of that is just snuffed out by smoke. I can tell. It's just, there's no way you could see that today from here. So that tells me just how thick it is. It's bad. One of the tricky things here is keeping up on the comments, because if I was streaming directly from my phone, I would see your comments right on that same phone, but with the app I'm using, it's not like that. So I have a separate phone that's just on my, logged into YouTube, or not even logged in, it's my wife's phone, it's her account, and I'm just watching the stream. So there's a bit of a delay probably in terms of when I see your comments, but I'm also distracted by my primary device switching between shots and so forth. So if I'm a bit late responding to your comment, I do apologize. I can still smell smoke, obviously, but what's interesting is so often when you're in the smoke for a while, you just kind of get used to it, but it's still so profound. And I have no doubt when I go home, I'll hear some comments from my family about how much I smell like smoke. You could just feel it kind of like settling, adhering to your skin. You feel kind of gummy. We're going to move a bit. Now, normally, you say, "What an interesting shot, Mark. What's going on there?" That doesn't seem to be much to it. Well, normally there would be. I mean, the woods, the trees there, just disappear below. I'll try and zoom in more without losing too much resolution, but there's forest that you should see kind of extending further downhill. A bit of it anyway, as it makes its way down the hillside toward Highway 9 in the Snohomish Valley. But it just disappears. So I show this to you so you can just kind of get perhaps a feel for when we start to just lose sight of everything through the fog. I can tell there's a burning orange. It's not going to pick up so well on the phone. Well, let's give it a shot. Yeah, it doesn't pick up, translate to the phone well. It's very, very subtle, but I sense that that area wants to be illuminated. The sun trying to penetrate through this. Here I am. I'm hearing that eagle out there somewhere, just down below us. So we're now 55 minutes into this broadcast, still no sign of the sun. It is 7:41 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. The official time of sunrise was 59 minutes ago at 6:42. But again, it takes a while for the sun to come up over those Cascade Mountains that we would normally see in the distance. And it all happened. We just couldn't see it because of the smoke. Just amazing that there's no sign of the sun, other than daylight. Okay, I'm just starting to make out the sun, you guys. I can see the sun. So you see the lights there. It's going to be to the right. It's just starting to bleed through in this area. I can see it with my eye, but of course it may not be translating so well. It's quite high, so it's been up for a while, obviously. Oh, let's see if we can get that to... I'm going to turn on my DSLR. I better put a lens on my DSLR. It's on the same tripod that we're using for the live stream. So, yeah, it's 7:44. We're just starting to see the sun. I don't know if you can make it out in your shot just yet. Yeah, you can. I can see it now on the camera. I'll try and center it up there. Put it in the center of your screen. It's now in the center of your screen. Don't know if my mic is picking up on it, but I can hear the sound of the train down in the valley. It's tricky. I'll zoom all the way out. So it'll come better into view here. Boy, I tell you what, that is something. So it's taken about an hour. Well, I would say 45 minutes or so. Once it was probably visible over the mountains for us to finally be able to just make it out. And you're probably saying, Mark, what are you talking about? Well, it's there. It's just, I mean, I'm really starting to see it now. So hope to give you a better view of it here shortly. It will, because as it rises, it's going to get above this thick pocket of smoke that's down here in the valley just below us. See if we can capture a shot here on the DSLR. Okay, let's zoom in. I think hopefully you're going to be able to make it out on camera here soon. Yeah, I think you should be able to see it. So it's somewhat in the center of your screen, just right of center perhaps. It's now 7:48 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Our stream has been going on for 1 hour and 2 minutes, going on 1 hour and 3 minutes now. So from this wide shot, you probably can't make out the sun at all. And I don't know how well you could perhaps make it out when we were zoomed in, but it is present now. We can see it with the naked eye, and it's quite high. Yet we're really struggling to see it, aren't we? It has nothing to do with clouds because there are no clouds. See if I can sun is just here. Well, I tell you what, I'm watching the stream play back on a separate phone, and it appears, at least, well, on my phone that I'm watching it on, it has frozen. Now, the phone that's doing the streaming, everything looks good. So perhaps it's just on my end with this other phone that okay, there it goes. Looks like we're doing okay. Are you able to see the sun? That's my question. Through this shot. I might get a resounding no from you, but to the naked eye, it's just, it's fighting hard to become plain as day, but there's nothing plain as day about this other than the obvious, so much smoke. If you just joined, we mentioned earlier in the live stream that there's a great website for the latest information for wildfire smoke here in Washington State. It's a website that the Washington State Department of Ecology and others have partnered to put together on. It's got great satellite imagery, health information, and much more related to this smoke event. It's wasmoke.blogspot.com. That's wasmoke.blogspot.com. Very good resource. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll call a cutoff time here. Cutoff time will be 8 a.m. And at that time, I'll be a step closer to a hot cup of coffee. Despite the smoke, if you're being impacted by it, I hope your Saturday is off to a good start. Hope that you and your family, friends, and loved ones are all safe and healthy. Those words mean more than ever in 2020, don't they? Wow, you know the sun is no longer visible. Well, very faintly. That's coughing because of the scratchiness from the smoke. So I thought it was just going to be a situation where you get later into the day or the morning, and the sun comes out of that thick condensed smoke down in the valley and just gets brighter and brighter. But what's happened instead is it briefly showed itself, and faintly, admittedly, and now it's obscured again. So there's a thick layer in that band of the jet stream, if you will, that's preventing us from seeing the sun once again. So that speaks volumes, really, to, the eye test tells us a lot about just how severe it is in terms of the smoke. So a lot of what you're hearing in the news about how the air quality is just horrible in Washington and Oregon right now, um, the eye test would support that, the visual evidence this morning. Got 4 more minutes left till 8 o'clock. I'm going to change the camera position. I'm going to move this tripod. So I thought I'd show you a picture of Mount Rainier while I do that. This is what it would look like if our skies were clear at sunset, looking at Mount Rainier from Snohomish. Okay, 7:58. 2 more minutes and we'll wrap things up. Well, I really want to thank you for checking out this broadcast, those of you who did. Um, Kind of a slow event to live stream, but I wanted in real time to be able to share the experience of discovering exactly what the day would reveal in terms of sunrise. And other than smoke, it hasn't revealed a whole lot. Um, but then again, one could say that it's told us a lot about just how bad the situation is here. Um, Scoping, or not scoping, but broadcasting here on YouTube. I've been on Periscope so much um, for over an hour now, and we saw the sun finally after it rose, say about 45 minutes after it appeared over the Cascade Mountains. We finally saw a glimmer of it, ever so faintly. So faint you may not even have been able to make it out um, on watching the live stream, but to the naked eye, I could see it. And then, a bit surprisingly to me, it's just disappeared again. So I know that we'll see it a bit later in the morning, but it's bad here, no doubt about it. Hey, If you like this type of content, and it's not all like this, there are also some prepared videos and some breaking news and a lot of wildlife and nature, and share some tech stuff along the way too. If you like this type of content, please do consider liking and subscribing. If you do subscribe, hit the bell and you'll get notifications about when I upload a video or go live. Really appreciate your support. It means a lot to me. And thank you to those who have engaged with comments. It's been nice to hear your insights as well, and good cheer. I really do appreciate it. Stay safe out there. Have a great day or evening wherever you might be. And again, before we go to the close, I want to share that website one more time for a great resource on the wildfire situation here in Washington State, wasmoke, wasmoke.blogspot.com. Washington State Department of Ecology and other organizations have put together some great information for you there. And even if you're not from Washington, perhaps you would like to check that out just to see, excuse me, it's the smoke, just to see get some more depth of information about what's unfolding here. The good news is come Monday, just a couple of days, this is expected to start to dissipate. You can tell my voice is just now starting to give out. And it's not from a whole lot of talking. Crows spoke more, I think, made more clamoring than I did this time around. The crows in the nearby baseball field. Anyhow, thanks a lot for watching. It's been a pleasure to have you along for the ride. Take care, everybody.